This video is going to look at why O'Neill resigned in 1969. So Terence O'Neill resigned as Prime Minister of Northern Ireland on the 20th of April 1969, and there are a number of key reasons for his resignation. The first reason is his background. O'Neill had been Prime Minister of Northern Ireland since 1963. However, even since 1963, he was never entirely popular among unionists. O'Neill was appointed by the unionist elite. He wasn't chosen so much by the party itself, by the grassroots. He was educated in England and was from an aristocratic background, very different to the rest of the party. He was as well a liberal and moderate unionist, and this made him more suspicious to hardline unionists who were much more cautious of O'Neill and his policies. Many favoured Brian Faulkner and never really trusted O'Neill from 1963 all the way to his resignation in 1969. Secondly, you have his reforms. So O'Neill had this reform programme that he introduced, and that aimed to reach out to Catholic nationalist population of Northern Ireland. This included things like investment in Catholic majority areas like Derry. He had promises of fair housing allocation and efforts to attract the Catholic community by visiting Catholic schools like Assumption Grammar, or hospitals like the Mater, or even meeting Catholic church leaders like Cardinal Conway. He also met Sean Lemass, the Irish Taoiseach, in 1965. However, these reforms were seen in very different ways by the two main communities, and this led to mistrust, and this led to raised promises, and then it led eventually to his resignation. Thirdly, you have the unionist backlash. Much of this backlash was to his reforms. Many hardline unionists like Ian Paisley opposed O'Neill's reforms. They viewed it as a step towards a united Ireland. O'Neill was accused of being far too soft on nationalists, and Paisley and other loyalists organised protests and campaigned strongly against him. He faced resistance from within his own party, the OUP, which has become deeply divided between moderates and hardliners. Then you actually have nationalist frustration as well. So O'Neill resigned because his reforms had initially impressed nationalists, but over time they were just becoming increasingly frustrated because reform seemed slow and didn't seem genuine whatsoever. The civil rights movement continued to grow in strength and in numbers, and there was increasing violent clashes with the police. And this led to widespread mistrust of the government and of the police force. The Burntollet Bridge attack in January 1969 was seen as proof that O'Neill couldn't control the situation or protect peaceful protesters, and this led to lack of support among the Catholic community. This was seen in the poor electoral results because O'Neill resigned following an election that he actually called himself the Crossroads election. Now, his resignation came after this here, but the results of this election were not what O'Neill wanted, and this really reduced his support. He really hoped that by calling the Crossroads election in February 1969 that he would get increased support of moderate Protestants and moderate Catholics. However, the election had the opposite effect. It highlighted the deep divisions in Northern Ireland. Catholic community did not come out in the way that O'Neill wanted, and moderate unionist support was lukewarm. He couldn't lose this vote, but he actually saw the vote of his official unionist party decline or decrease enough that it actually weakened his OUP party won, but with reduced support, and O'Neill came within 1,000 votes of actually losing his own seat to Ian Paisley. His OUP party were also clearly split, and his authority was weakened, and he had clearly started to lose control. What really blew him out of office, though, were a series of bomb attacks, and O'Neill blames these in particular for having to resign. These attacks were on infrastructure such as Silent Valley Waterworks, and they were blamed on the IRA. However, they were in fact not the work of the IRA at all. They were the work of loyalists, and loyalists rightly predicted that the bombs would spark unionist worry and unionist anger at O'Neill, and he'd be forced to resign because he would be blamed. O'Neill actually said that the bombs blew him out of office. So finally, you have his resignation. In April 1969, O'Neill was under intense personal stress. He was receiving death threats, he had his home attacked, and he described himself as being caught between the lion and the tiger, between loyalist hardliners and nationalist demands. And eventually, the pressure became too much. He could no longer command the support of his party or the public, and on the 28th of April 1969, Terence O'Neill resigned as Prime Minister. He was succeeded by his cousin and a critic of his, James Chichester Clark, but the unrest did not stop. The unrest continued, and within a few months, the troubles had fully erupted. Many thanks for watching.